President Bola Tinubu has urged state governors to prioritize the welfare of Nigerians by investing in rural electrification, agricultural mechanization, poverty eradication, and infrastructure development. Speaking at the National Economic Council meeting in Abuja, the president emphasized the need for greater commitment to improving the lives of citizens, especially in rural communities. His remark came after the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Abubakar Bagudu, presented the Renewed Hope Ward Development Program, a new ward-based strategy endorsed by the NEC to accelerate double-digit economic growth through direct interventions in Nigeria's 1,809 administrative wards across all states. Now, President Tinubu called on governors to work closely with the federal government to drive grassroots economic development, noting that sustainable national progress depends on targeted investments at the community level. But joining us is strategist, policy advisor, and group CEO, Global Investment and Trade Company, Baba Yusuf. Good morning. It's good to have you join us.
Thank you for having me yet again, Veronica, Itoma, Ibrahim Aria. It's good to be here.
Great. Now, there are those who are questioning if it's important that the president speak about this matter and encouraging, if I might use the word, governors to do the needful, take care and ensure the welfare of those at the grassroots, especially because the primary purpose of governance or government is to ensure the security of lives and property of people, to ensure their welfare is ensured. But where the president begins to speak about these things, as a reminder, one questions really, is this a function of the failure of the subnationals doing the needful, or is there a missing gap that the president needs, he needs to remind these persons why they were, elected in the first place?
Thank you very much for having me yet again. It's a reflection of a very sad reality. The fact that Mr. President has to consistently call out the governors, and not just calling out the governors, by the way. For the record, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has provided the highest level of intervention to state governors in the Fourth Republic, to say the least. To the extent that the other day I was speaking with my friends and saying, to the extent that Mr. President has to start applying what I call feeding bottle approach to these governors, which is sad. But of course, Mr. President is trying to deliver the dividends of democracy the best he can, and he's trying to bring creative ways to reach down to the grassroots, which is a welcome development. But I dare say, like I have consistently been saying, the subnationals, particularly the state governments, most of them, not all of them, have been responsible for the 60% retrogression of development in this country. You will agree with me that the developmental, ratio of a country like Nigeria, that is a federation, is a function of the federal and state government performance and the local government combined. A tree does not make a forest. To the extent that they share the federal allocation FAC monthly, that is 2 or 3 folds, since the removal of subsidy, also speaks volume to how we have come to where we are, and Mr. President has to continue providing that intervention, whereas each state in Nigeria has the capacity to be a country on its own. I will rest my case at this point because I know we'll continue to x-ray the situations, but it does not speak well of the subnationals, as it were. Like I said, we are moving towards a feeding bottle, method of government, which should not be accepted by the electorates going forward. What if you don't have a creative, forward-thinking president like President Bola Ahmed Tinubu? What would happen to the citizens?
No, 1 year after the Supreme Court's judgment on local government autonomy, it still is not implemented. If it is implemented, how well will it impact on the people at the grassroots? And why are the governors still holding back the implementation of that judgment?
Well, Itoma, it is a reflection of why it is very important for us as citizens, because the president cannot do it alone. The arms of government cannot do it alone, i.e. the legislature and the judiciary, that Nigerians should all rise and support the execution of this very, very important, law and provision of the Constitution that has been there dormant but has been activated by this move made by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Because indeed, one, politics is local. Two, impacts of any administration are measured at that grassroots level, not at federal level, not at state level. That is the taproot of any society. And it is only when the impacts are felt there, all the dashboard analysis, macroeconomic, whatnot, does not make sense. So the local government administration should be fully activated, and they should be weaned off, or they should be, rescued from the shackles and handcuffs of governors over the years. It's an uphill task because it's a national cultural issue, but it can be done, because we never thought that within 1 year or so, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was able to at least make a point to say the local government autonomy must be implemented. But going forward also, we should all add our voices to ensure that these governors, those that are not ready, because I know some governors are, favorably disposed to, handing off going forward, but a lot of them don't want to face that reality for obvious reasons. So yes, local government administration should be fully activated and supported. People say that they will also go the same way as governors. Say, why don't we try? We know the days of the NA, the Native Authority, back in the days pre-colonial and pre-independence, and even post-independence. So we should all support that and make sure it happens. Otherwise, these governors will never, allow it to happen.
Yeah, Alhaji Baba, good morning once again in Akwana, and thanks for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Good morning, Ria.
But now, you said something that I really picked on. You spoke about the fact that, the feeding bottle mechanism. And at the end of the day, the question is, should people be told how to do their jobs or what to do? When we speak about these rural areas, trust me, in terms of education, they are lacking. In terms of hospitals, they are lacking. We can go on and on and on. Now, if this implementation is supposed to happen, what are the ways that the grassroots will feel it? Because these people are really going through a lot. When you go there and you see how they are treated, they get to hospitals, there are no beds. These people do not even eat, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So at the end of the day, if these people are supposed to get all they need, what are some of the things that need to be done? And do we always have to wait when it's campaign to use these people, and just after that, we forget about them totally?
Thank you for that very important question. And to add to that, very sadly, is a paradox that 90% of whatever number of people that come out to vote, really vote, because people like us, majority of the elites don't vote, are those people. 90% of the people that go out in the rain and the sun, whether they are being given spaghetti or whatever to campaign, whether their numbers count or not, are those people. 95% of the people that all the leaders, whether the president or the leaders are subnational, and even the parliament and judiciary, end up going back for them to take somebody when he dies to bury him, are those people. And all of us come from there. It is very unfortunate that there is this very large disconnect, but it begs to the question of, is our recruitment process able to filter out the kind of people that should lead us? Do they have the right mindset? And if they do they have the capacity? And if do they have the competency? And if they do they have the integrity? These are three critical, success factors to evaluate the kind of people that lead you. One is not mutually exclusive for the other. Sometimes we think integrity is good enough. If that is the case, Buhari would have been the best president in the Fourth Republic. Some people say capacity and educational qualification is enough. So it's a combination of all. But more importantly is the mindset, fundamentally. And I dare say, for example, in this administration, we have governors that have, are battling with what I call the complications of the complications created by their predecessors, from tribal and political sentiments, toxic in that nature, and the burden of debt that is being managed by, and excellently so by Governor Obasani of Kaduna State, to the rising urbanization and the demand for scaling, you know, of Lagos, which Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu is doing excellently, and also the disruption being created, you know, in Abia by the governor of Abia, and of course, the person I consider one of the most proactive, consistent, proactive governors in Nigeria, which is Governor Zulum of Borno, doing a young man's job despite the insecurity. But you can use one hand or two to actually count the number of governors that are really forward-thinking and are really impacting on their people out of the whole 36 and FCT, 36 states and FCT. And therefore, it is very important also for us to understand that they need help at the hinterlands. Who are the people to help them? Myself and all of you in that studio and what I call the elites in Nigeria, because we have been consistently failing Nigerians. We partake in whatever is happening at subnational or federal level, either as civil servants or public officers at top line, PAMSECs, directors, whatnot, whether it is in corruption, whether it is whatever that is going on. Sometimes we even cheerlead these people as they fail. And when election time comes, we are nowhere to be found because we are in our comforts of our home, sipping on juice or doing analysis on TV, and then later be part of the judging team. We need to wake up to that reality because God has blessed us so much. We are small in number, but if you look at the ratio of 80-20 leadership, you know, strategy and framework, we are very important to change the mindset of the leaders and also to tune the mindset of the citizens of this country. And where people are not delivering, we should have the moral, you know, compass and the capacity to say this is not right and we are not going to accept it. Unless we move away from what I call the conspiracy of the elites and deal with it decisively for those that are forward-thinking amongst the elites, the people in the hinterlands that are our parents, our brothers and sisters will continue to suffer. You see people that became governors that have failed on their watch, and they now have become latter-day activists, which begs the question of this hypocrisy of our expectations as elites, and also the hypocrisy of the so-called governors or presidents or senators that have failed and have the audacity to challenge the status quo when they were part of the problem.
It's good that you actually, you know, calling for action, and we hope that people take this, you know, charge. But on one side is the question that Etoma asked you earlier regarding the state governors still having a stranglehold on the federal allocation, which is now over 4 trillion naira since the Supreme Court judgment. On the other hand is what the federal government has, the Tinubu's Renewed Hope World Level Program, which aims to drive economic growth through world level interventions, etc. But NEMA and SEMA are saying that they are not able to implement some of the actions because of infrastructural problems and insecurity that are happening. What would you consider the most significant structural and logistical challenges governors face in implementing this initiative by the federal government?
First of all, they are part of the problem. You know, we can't continue lamenting about problems, but Ibrahim, by the way, thank you for that question, and we continue begging the question without acting. Action is critical. Strategy is good, but it is nothing without execution. And execution is a function of, implementation is a function of execution. One is to deal with insecurity. Insecurity has become a behemoth of a problem. Every other issue comes under insecurity. And insecurity is a national issue, not just a federal issue. I'm happy we are talking about state police and others. So concerted effort to decisively deal with insecurity. Two, the issue of infrastructure will continue to be here. We can look at the model of Lagos State. It has to be a modular approach, and it has to be consistently done. If we go back to the Second Republic, we see the governors of Kano, Alej Abakarimi, the governors of Lagos, Alej Latif Jakande, people like governors of Anambra, Jim Nwobodo, what they did, you know, in those days as governors, how creative they were, how innovative and prudent they were with their resources. Today, we are still celebrating infrastructure that were built in First and Second Republic, apart from the few governors that are doing well. And they construct 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer road at astronomical figures. You can see the depths that some of them have left behind for values that you cannot see. So going forward, we must be very practical about this thing. And that goes for the governors and for the citizens to continue holding them to account. You see, if there is no accountability, if there is no consequence management, you cannot change culture. Because this has become a culture. Corruption has become a culture and part of our society because of the erosion of our value system. Unless that is done, we cannot have these things done. You will see 10-kilometer road, maybe, or some small infrastructure, we are clapping for them. We don't need to clap for governors because they provide what they promise to deliver. We should clap for them for overachieving when they underpromise, not to overpromise and underachieve. You know, so that being said, we are here. Mr. President has come up with initiative, brilliant. We should ensure that, you know, we follow up to ensure that the governors do the needful, encourage the governors that are performing so that those that are not will realize that we have woken up to that reality, and the political consciousness of Nigeria, you know, is more alert than before, moving into 2027 to say that we understand the value of our votes and we understand that we are the bosses. They are not the bosses. Unless that is done, the governors will continue to have a chokehold, you know, on the local government administration and continue to be bottlenecks for a president that wants to deliver. Don't forget, if the president overreaches, we will blame him for overreaching and violating the principles of separation of power. So we should continue speaking to the governors consistently to deliver. That is the only way to go.
Well, but how binding are such advisories from the president looking at our federal structure? Perhaps this is why some persons have talked about true federalism and how we need to do the needful regarding that, so perhaps Nigerians can hold the subnationals accountable in the way they can. Second question is, you spoke about accountability earlier on, and I'm wondering what the role of Nigerians are at ensuring that the subnationals deliver on their promises. Whenever you hear them speak, they point accusing fingers to the federal government, saying the federal government has not done this and that. Meanwhile, they have a governor who is meant to deliver on promises he made to them, but they are not looking in that direction.
Very good question, Veronica, and I think my answer will answer both of them double barrel. You see, Mr. President, as a strategic thinker as he is applying the strategy of sensing and influencing. He understands his limitations despite the fact that he's the president. And he doesn't want to be caught or accused of overreaching. So the strategy of sensing and influencing is saying it consistently and loudly. Guys, look at the subnationals. Hello, look at the subnationals. It's a very valid point. It's a communication strategy. Brilliant. The more he says it, the more it sinks into the subconsciousness of Nigerians that when some of the governors and some of these politicians, whether they are senators or House of Rep members or former governors, come and started continuously pointing to the federal as if there is one demigod there that is supposed to do magic, you know, selling these dummies to most especially, you know, the people at the grassroots. This is the only way you can consistently redirect attention and focus to not just abandoning the federal government, to, you know, but to also have what I always call, even in this program, direct and peripheral vision at federal and subnational, and more so to the subnationals. That is what Mr. President is doing. But more than that, Mr. President is also providing the interventions. All the time, you can, how many billion of naira has been given every month to states, and then this kind of interventions coming in, because of course, if you look at it from a strategic perspective also, Mr. President needs to provide that intervention for him to secure the 2027 election to continue delivering the dividends of democracy. Otherwise, as we have seen, the governors have become superpowers in the political dynamics of Nigeria. So sometimes I can even see it from the point of view of sabotage of whatever president is there, whether it is a President Buhari or President Tinubu or Jonathan or anybody. They have become superpowers because people have not been focusing on them. So I think what Mr. President is doing is highly strategic. But like I said earlier, the citizen consciousness of their roles, responsibilities, and powers also lies on the elites, people that are elected to continue speaking to our people and refuse to partake when and if there is need for them to come and perpetrate whatever evil they are perpetrating, because it is easy for us to sit and judge the governors, but like I said, you know, leadership is a value chain. We form part of the leadership value chain, and we are promoting corruption, whether directly or indirectly, you know, knowingly or unknowingly. Religious leaders, traditional leaders, you know, and all community leaders should realize that unless there is concerted effort, this cannot be done by what I call focal point leader. 2 weeks ago, I have said it, I've written consistently, leadership from the point of view of a focal point leader, will not deliver, whether it is the president
Okay, just before we let you go,
unless that is addressed, we cannot go forward.
Sorry, just before we let you go, we have less than 2 minutes to do this. You said something that caught my attention. You said, we are the bosses. But when the bosses do not know that they are the bosses, there's a problem. What would you tell civil society? Because I think there is need for mass education here.
Mass education from the point of view of the elites. I still go back to the elites. Etoma, you come from somewhere. Berima came from somewhere. Ria, Ibrahim, myself. We all have a responsibility, religiously, spiritually, constitutionally, to speak to our people in mosques, in churches, in community gatherings. The civil society organizations have been doing a lot, but over the time, I am one of those that believe that some of them have been converted to special purpose vehicles for political reasons. So there is need for awakening from the point of view of the civil society organizations. But the civil society organizations are also creation of a society. So we as a people, like I said, the elites, the religious leaders, the traditional leaders, all of us have a role to play to point at the right direction for people to understand this consistently. We have not done it as much as possible thus far. Some of us have been consistent. We should all understand that in our little corners we have roles to play, and it has cumulative effect on the whole, especially moving into next election, for people to understand this. And of course, the national orientation of Nigeria, Larry is doing a lot of good job there. We see a lot of sensitization, but especially with regards to citizens, responsibility to hold government to account at federal and subnational is very key. And like I said, to land with this, we should support the activation fully of the local government, administration going forward. And that's holding also people to account is a function of holding people to account from the government perspective.
Baba Yusuf, if you can hear me. Unfortunately, our time is up.
I can hear you, Veronica.
I know that there's a lot you want to say regarding this matter, but time is not our friend. Strategist, policy advisor, and group CEO, Global Investment Trade Company. Thank you so much, Baba Yusuf, for your time once again.
It's a pleasure anytime.